coming down. It won't be like that, of course, when you guys are over. And the good news for all of us in the West is you've added a Perth date to the tour.
Where are you?
Perth, Western Australia.
Oh, right. And you're having a bit of rain then, are you?
You're having massive rain. I think we're having all the year's rain in one day today.
Oh, God. We
So,
had that a couple of months ago. Now, we are on a hill
yeah.
where we are. It's like a farm building. And we never, because we're on top of chalk and other sedimentary rocks, and we never get flooded.
Oh.
And there must have been so much rain coming down the road and then into our farmyard and across the front of the house. My wife sent me a video of this thing that looked like a little waterfall going over our front step, and it didn't come into the house. And I'm going, wow, never seen that. And by the time I got home, an hour or two later, it had kind of dissipated. But there must have been so much water at that one moment. I can now see why towns get this deluge, and it's unbelievable.
Oh, there's a lot. I mean, especially where I'm from, sort of like Nottingham, Lincolnshire, that sort of area. There's
Right.
a lot of lowland there that gets a lot of it.
Yeah. Yeah, well, they do reckon that the Humber estuary and the Severn estuary will join one day.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, I know there's a big seawall near where we used to live growing up, but
Right.
they keep adding to year after year. So
how long have you been over there then?
Since '92.
Yeah, the accent's coming now. I can hear you with the Aussie, little bit of Aussie strine.
Yeah, only when I talk to English people, it sort of I get a bit of Aussie in there. I don't know why. It should be the other way around.
Yeah. Did you ever go to Rock City back then?
That's where I practically used to live there. Yeah, so
right.
I think I was there about 3 or 4 times a week.
Right. Well, it's on our tour this year in the UK. So
it's a brilliant venue. There's a bit of Lemmy
it is
now in there. So
well, I have to say the original band played there in 1980, I think, or 81.
Okay.
And normally we would have played like Nottingham City Hall or something, but we were now playing, should we say, more rock orientated venues by the end of the 70s, early 80s, and then the band today played there for the first time in something like 2011 or something like that.
Okay.
And I thought to myself, this is it. We've come home. We've done the full circle here. And that just happens to be the name of the new album, Full Circle.
Full Circle, so, fantastic. It was one of the things I was going to ask you about was new music, because I always get a bit sad and a bit suspicious when I read the words "the farewell tour."
Yeah,
hoping that it's going to be neither of those things. You're going to stay around, aren't you?
Well, let me tell you, I did say a couple of years ago that I just don't want to do touring like it used to be, from Scandinavia through Belgium, Holland, Germany, Switzerland, Austria, and then out into the Baltic states, and then thinking about maybe going to America for 2 or 3 weeks. I can't do that anymore. I'm 50. I'm a bit of an ambassador for prostate cancer, and I'm 15 years in now. And my only message to everybody is, if you've got any feelings or just thinking things aren't quite right, go and get something to look at it, because it's better to be around for another 15 years than just 15 months. It's by far a better thing to do. So bearing that in mind, a farewell tour is one thing, but a farewell to shows or gigs and Europe is a lot closer. So we tend to go into Germany and do 2 or 3 gigs over a weekend, and then have a weekend off, and then do the same thing, and then go to Denmark and Sweden, because you can do that in a weekend. With the new bridge.
And you must have been doing that.
Yeah, well, that's the kind of thing that we will continue doing, but I don't see us doing long tours anymore. First of all, it takes so much out of you, and I do understand that coming to Australia, that you've got to think of the promoter to come over and do 2 or 3 shows. It just is not feasible unless you have another reason for being there.
Yeah. Well, it's a lovely country. It's worth having a look around while you're over here. So
Oh, I've been coming to Australia since 1973.
yeah, it's brilliant. I mean, saying what you said then, I mean, like getting over to Europe and stuff like that. You've been doing that for 50 years. Like the amount of
Mm,
stuff you can find on YouTube now, The Sweet in Denmark on this obscure TV show that I hadn't certainly never heard of, or something in Sweden. You must have been
mm.
literally doing that pretty much every week back in the heyday.
Oh, there was somebody went through my um, diaries from because I always used to keep like a really small diary that I'd always have on me and make notes of who we were going to see that day and where we were so that you could always go back and go, oh, that's when we were in Chicago, is it? And that kind of thing. And in 1973, he said you were away, you were doing something on 250 days of the year.
Christ.
And it was at that point where I said to him, so that's why my first marriage didn't last,
Yeah, I mean it's a lot of work
It
by
is, yeah,
in any decade by anyone's standards. Um,
yeah,
you like one of the things I must admit I love about the Sweet is the hard rock stuff. I'll make no bones about it. I love the bubblegum, which obviously everyone else loves out there, but for me it was always the songs that the band wrote that were the important ones. Um,
yeah,
I was just actually listening to Off the Record and Give Us a Wing the other day, and there's some great stuff I still think on
yeah.
albums like that.
Well, we will be playing something from both of those albums.
Yeah, cool.
I mean, Windy City, I love it
That's great.
as a track, and it's got one of those riffs that you can't ignore.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you've been playing guitar for a long time before you had that famous audition for the Sweet, and I guess been in lots of bands, recorded a lot in the studio. What was the difference? I mean, I was just looking through some of your history, especially with like people like the Silvertone set. And my dad told me, he goes, he saw you on Opportunity Knocks or something like that
Right,
back in the day, which I guess is like the idol of today. People think that history doesn't repeat itself, but
right.
but,
It
but
is.
it
It was
does.
very much like Pop Idol or X Factor or something.
Yeah, but
Probably closer to X Factor,
yeah,
rather than because it was not X Factor. Like Britain's Got Talent. There must be an Australia's Got Talent because
they
it
were
wasn't
everywhere.
just music. That there were people, there were juggling acts. There were women with making their dogs jump through hoops and all that stuff. It was a really mixed bag. But we just happened to hit the mark for about 5 weeks, and then a comedian called Freddie Starr beat
Yes,
us on that show.
yeah,
Um,
pride.
but I was a fresh-faced kid playing bass in that band of 16. So
It's
it's
crazy. And
and then the next year I was the guitar player because I could play guitar obviously,
yeah,
and we'd been that band supported Jimi Hendrix
I know.
on his first tour of Britain in 1967, January 67, and it was phenomenal. The singer of the Silverstones and myself were stood on the side of the stage, and both of us went. I think our seven-piece band with two saxophones is probably at the end of its run here, and that's where we formed the Elastic Band. The more progressive rock band.
Yeah, with the singer, I think joined Love Affair or
He
some
did,
such
yeah,
band like
yeah.
that.
I think I look back at that now, and I wonder what he thinks. The way he left to join Love Affair, I then played with Paul McCartney's brother,
Yeah.
Mike, in the Scaffold, and then joined Sweet, and the Love Affair kind of disappeared a little bit, and it's funny how things work out. But he and I were the best of friends, and when somebody leaves a band, and obviously his parents were behind it,
Mm.
oh, there's money there, you better go and do that. And then you don't hear from him saying, I'm so sorry, Andy. Makes you resilient. You
Yes.
start to go, right, so that's what friendship is about, isn't it? You
Yeah.
know,
That's what I guess they're the lessons that life teaches us, aren't they? I guess as we go
they
along.
are,
And it
yeah.
must have been amazing to see Hendrix on that first tour, because that's changed so much for everybody. But there seemed to be
Well, standing in the wings, I could have literally touched and tuned his guitar for him, you
know. There seemed to be an awful lot of work around in those days as well. Like everyone was playing, so many bands, so many people out attending gigs. And I guess these days, the good news is the Sweet obviously tours selling very well, but I guess it's so hard these days to sort of get people out to a live venue when it was part of our DNA, even back in my day.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, one of the things was there was no internet. You did an interview with a magazine. It didn't come out till next month.
Yes.
You did an interview with a local paper that gig you were doing next week. That would come out middle of the week, with the 2 days before the gig. And your way of getting yourself around and getting noticed was the gigs.
Yeah.
If people liked you, and there were a dozen people clamoring outside the dressing room, after you'd played, this is before hits, you knew you were starting to attract some people, and that's what you had to do. I mean, half the bands that came through after the Beatles with their phenomenal, rise, were all part of the Beatles scene, in different cities: Manchester, Liverpool, Newcastle. London was kind of following in the shirt tails back then. But there was a producer there who I knew quite well, Mickey Most, who grabbed a lot of the bands that were around and just took them in the studio, never knowing what he might get. But that's how you end up with some of these fantastic hits by bands like the Nashville Teens, Tobacco Road, and it's just a phenomenal music business back then. Now, I think the first thing that record companies and radio stations look at is how many followers have you got on the internet.
Exactly.
Now that's stupid, because we all know that could be done by robots in far-flung places, just hitting click buttons, and reality hits home when you think you might have sold 1 million and you haven't, because it's all been just slightly hyped up a little bit,
Yeah, it's so easy as well, isn't it? You don't have to actually do anything to click on like for a band these days. There's no commitments. You might not ever see that page again. One of the things I've never asked you, and we've spoken a couple of times, but quite some time ago, I think the last time was, and I just wanted to put this on the radio because I've never heard the story from you, was that infamous showing in somewhere in Scotland. I think it was in Kilmarnock or somewhere like that. That you know what I'm going to say, don't you? That inspired one of my favourite Sweet songs. That you guys. How much of that was true, and how much of it was like apocryphal?
I would say you can always overdo something. You can always have make the anecdote a little bit wilder. But I have to tell you, most of it was true, because the girls in that audience were, throwing their things that would cover body parts onto the stage, and trying to get on the stage. And it was a bunch of skinhead type guys who they closed the balcony off because apparently in this town hall it wasn't really safe enough, and with the amount of people that were in there, they did not want people jumping up and down just in case it collapsed. And one part of the balcony came almost to the stage, and it happened to be my side of the stage. So these about half a dozen of them managed to get up there, the lads, and we're coming towards the end of our set now, and they're spitting at me is one of the things that they were doing. And they were also throwing things. Luckily it wasn't bottles, but it was coins and stuff like that. And the other guys on the band were looking across, and I've got my roadie to move my mic as close as I could back towards it so that they couldn't spit on me anymore. But now my pedal board, my treasured pedal board, is covered in the stuff. I'm looking at my roadie and he's going, and he wanted to come out and put the lid on it. And we, in the end, we looked at each other and we just said, let's move to the last two songs. of which the last one was Blockbuster. And while the siren was still going, as we walked off stage, we went straight into the car, and we were just a bit worried because we did have a local hotel that we might have been staying at. And we went back to Glasgow to the hotel that we would normally have been staying at, which was about 45 minutes drive. I'm now still covered in this crap with a towel over my head, and the others are going, oh, I don't want to sit next to him. So I'm sitting in the front of the limo with the driver, and we got ourselves to the hotel. Our tour manager steamed out and said, please tell me you've got 5 rooms. And they said, yeah, of course, we'll always find room for your band. And I walked in bedraggled with my towel over my head, and somebody had roughly shut my gig case. Now, our other stuff was in the old hotel in Kilmarnock, so we had to send the driver back to grab all of that. And when he got back, we'd now had, a little bit of alcohol in the bar, and it's probably now gone midnight, and we're still in our stage clothes, and we're sat in the bar, having a whiskey or two, and talking about the things of the night. Now, the weird thing is, Mike Chapman saw it all, the songwriter. And the next single that he wrote, because we had Hellraiser in the bag, and the next single that he wrote was the Ballroom Blitz. So
fantastic, isn't it? I mean, there's great stories like that. What was that relationship like? Because I know, my favorite Sweet song is "Love Is Like Oxygen," which it just came at the time for me.
Well, that had Nicky and Mike had gone by then. I've never fallen out with anybody. I know that Steve Priest, our bass player, when he moved to America, he had a real not hate, and that's too strong a word, but he definitely had a thing up with Nicky, the partner of Mike Chapman. He and I think he used to get quite evil in phone calls with him when he'd had a wine or two. But I've never fallen out with anybody, and I've always found that the central line, it may sound boring, but it's the best way of getting things done. Don't start wars that you'll never win, because all it does is it'll fire you up. And I still have a relationship with Mike Chapman. When I was producing one of Susie's albums, he was like the executive producer, ringing me up saying, I love what you're doing, but he said, I've been listening to a band called Evanescence. We can't get some of that slightly distorted vocal in there on 1 or 2 tracks. And I go, I'll do my best. And of course, what you'd have to do is you have to put the mic through a kind of amplifier, so that it comes out like the kind of a mic that you'd play a harmonica through. And we achieved it on a couple of tracks, but it's our original producer, Phil Wainman, I'm probably going to go and have lunch with him again soon. You don't fall out with these people because we've all got a talent of some kind or other. And I think they all realized that there was something there when I wrote Love Is Like Oxygen and produced that. They all of a sudden, any kind of, you just keep, all of a sudden I'm a member of I was a member anyway of the Record Producers Guild of Britain, and sitting alongside me is Elton John's producer and Phil Wainman, who produced the early Sweet songs. And it's a respect, I think, is the best word you can call it. If you're getting some respect, you're happy.
Do you enjoy that, Andy? Because I know you've produced a few things, but I sort of expected that you might have. And I loved stuff like QSP, which I thought was wonderful.
Oh, you like that? Yeah,
I'd love to see you guys back again with that one. But is it something you really enjoy, or just something that you've got a natural aptitude for? So you sort of will do it.
Apart from a hiatus in the early 80s, 82 to 84, 5, I've always been on the road, and I've always been since 1970, been in Sweet, trying to guide it. Even though I've been offered other gigs. Towards the end of the 70s, I remember our manager, our British manager, started to manage Sammy Hagar after Sammy supported us on some dates in the US. Now, he was fantastic. He just left Montrose, and he put a band together. His bass player and drummer were part of his. I think they left Montrose as well at the same time. So he basically pulled across players that he was used to playing with, and he had a second guitar player, younger guy, and he wasn't happy with some of that. And my manager said, "Would you like to come and play with Sammy?" And I thought, well, Sammy's up and coming, but Sweet are still having kind of some form of success, you know, being on big tours, you know, in the States. But I think he could see the where we were going, and he just was trying to say, come with Sammy, you know, there's a bit more longevity there, and he was probably right. But then I said to him, if I leave Sweet, it will disintegrate.
Yeah.
And he said, no, you're absolutely right. And so you have to enjoy what you do. Otherwise, why are you doing it? And if you don't enjoy your job, find another one. And it was kind of that at the end of the 70s, very early 80s, 81. We'd just done a tour of Britain, sellout, fantastic. And Steve was off to America. And I remember sitting with him before he went. We got back to London. This was like early 82, probably. And he'd already moved most of his stuff over there, and he was back. He's actually staying with me. And I said to him, is this it then? And he went, it probably is. He said, I never enjoyed touring properly the way it went. I yearn for those early days where you could get in the car, go and do the gig and drive back to London, and it was done. And I said, yeah, I understand that, Steve, but, you know, life throws these things at you. And when he would move to America, it kind of took one aspect of it away, because Brian had already left in 79. And there was just Mick and I. And Mick was not really for doing anything at that point. He had a couple of personal tragedies, and he went into a shell. So I'm now thinking, well, the best thing I can do now is get on with what I wanted to do, which was be record production and playing on other people's records, singing and arranging and stuff like that. I actually appeared on a US #1 at that time by a band called Breathe. It was called Hands to Heaven. Yeah, as a session man and as a singer, and then I started to play with a London pub band called Paddy Goes to Holyhead.
I've heard of them.
Yeah. And about a year later, we're doing the Marquee. We're doing these bigger venues, and I'm realizing, well, a friend of mine said, you know, all this is starting because of you. You know, they used to play like the Golden Lion or the King's Head or the Greyhound, but now he said we're starting to play to 1,000 people. And then the singer came to me and he said, I can't do this any longer. He said, for the last month, we've been earning real money. We're all very happy. And here's your share. And I went, because I was doing it to keep my hand in, basically. And then we recorded the Green Grass of Home, you know, and it almost made the charts. And then someone said to me, why aren't you still getting the Sweet back together? And I thought, yeah, why am I not? And then I bumped into my agent, who I've known for almost 50 years, in the street, of all things, near where I was living. And he said, oh, my office is just up here. So I went and had a meet with him. We went and had a pint and we chat. He said, I get inquiries every week. Are the Sweets still available? And he has to say, well, at the moment, they're resting, you know, as an agent would. He wouldn't say it's over until, because somebody might be offering him a lot of money, and then he'll be ringing me up saying, come on, get the band back together. But it was for the right reasons. I needed something. Mick Tucker needed something, and I really believed that Steve was involved as well, but he wasn't. He was just making noises. And our first tour back together as the Sweet was in Australia in 1985.
Yes.
We were supposed to be there for a month, and we were there for over 2 months. because everywhere we went sold out. There were second shows being put on, and then the guy said, "We're going back through all the cities doing venues again." We did three nights at Selena's in Sydney,
Yeah, sadly
which is like
being taken down
which is a
now.
bit,
Yeah, it's
yeah,
been
which is a
redeveloped.
big room.
Mm.
And we did and I remember us doing a pilot dates, two different places in Perth,
Mm.
back then.
Yeah, I think both of
So,
those are gone now. And Selena's, we've just heard, is going to be turned into high rise. So
oh, is it? What,
sadly,
the Coogee Bay Hotel or whatever it
yeah,
was? Yeah.
yeah. Or
That's the sad thing about development, isn't it?
it is
All of a sudden one time you had a view, and then somebody builds a 10-floor apartment block in front of you.
exactly. At least
Yeah,
the whiskey and Rock City is still there. That's all I can say.
yeah.
Thank you so much for your time today, Steve. I think we're coming nearly. Sorry, Andy.
Oh,
Maybe Steve
I
then.
seem to have prattled on. Hey, we're on tour in Australia, and you must come and see us because it's the farewell tour. We have a new album called Full Circle, which will be out in time for that tour. And we're also on Rock the Boat this year out of Sydney, just before the tour. And we're all looking forward to it, and it's going to be fantastic.
Fantastic. Could I ask you to do one more thing before you go, Andy? We're 15 this year, the Rockpit. It's our 15th birthday. We've been around that long now. Would you
Right.
mind? We're just doing a video compilation of everyone we talked to, just saying
Okay.
happy 15th birthday to the Rockpit.
Yeah.
Would you mind doing that for us?
Hi, this is Andy Scott of The Sweet, and you're with Mark and Andy at the Rockpit celebrating 15 years together. Wow, that's a long time.
It is a long time, but you've been in the business a lot longer than I think most people, and it's so wonderful to hear that there's a new album coming out. I really enjoyed the last two that you
Yeah.
put on. You're kind enough, I think, second last time I saw you, you and the band were kind enough to sign a copy of one of them for me. So
Okay.
looking forward to catching up with the new music soon when it comes out. Thank you so much.
Yeah. If you go on our official YouTube channel, there are a couple of the things that are going to be on that album on there, like songs like Everything and Don't Bring Me Water. So you'll be able to get a flavour of where we're going anyway.
Fantastic. I'll leave you to enjoy the rest of your porridge if it's not too cold.
Cold porridge is all right by me, mate. Yeah.
Thank you so
Thank
much,
you.
mate. Take care of yourself. Safe trip.
And you. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye.